and gentlemen, thank you guys for taking some time out of your day to join me. First and foremost, I want to apologize for getting you guys this content out a day late. I had some, let's just call them technical issues yesterday, where I recorded for about 3 hours and then found out that my microphone was not on. So that happened, decided to take a break, head to the mall with the family, blow off some steam, and that was awesome. I will get you guys every single video out as usual. It'll just take me a little bit longer. I'm gonna get as many out today as I can, finish it up tomorrow, and I still plan on doing my final start sit and updated tiers on Friday. With that done, what do we have for you guys today? It is Wednesday. I'm a day behind. I'm doing quarterbacks and kickers for sure. I'm also going to try to get out both running backs and either my wide receiver video or my tight end defense video today as well. Going to try to bring you 3 and then get you that other one tomorrow so I can get back on schedule for Friday. If you are new to the channel, welcome. Please consider liking and subscribing. Your support means so very much to me. It helps me out a ton as I'm going for my first 200 subscribers. If you guys have any start or sit questions, especially as the week goes on, please drop them down below or reach out to me on Sleeper. I am available there as well. I'm going to go over the top 24 options at quarterback for those of you in 2 QB and Superflex leagues, which everyone should be a part of. I'm also going to cover the top 12 kicker options in case you need those as well. We want every single type of advantage that we can get. With that done, let's get into Week 18's quarterback rankings. My top spot, numero uno, is Josh Allen at home against the Jets. While it certainly was not a pretty day at the office for Allen, it was a productive one for managers. His 3 picks against the Falcons are a concerning trend. He now has 5 of them in his last 4 games, but his rushing ability more than makes up for it. With finishes in the top 7 in 4 straight games. The Jets also allow top 5 numbers to the position, so he's going to keep that streak going. They allow that in both points per game to the position and passing yards allowed. Moving on to number 2, it is Joe Burrow, who travels to Cleveland to take on the Browns. In his last 2 games, Burrow has put up video game numbers, throwing for 971 passing yards and 8 scores. He was the QB1 overall in both weeks. The Browns are tied for the 4th most passing touchdowns allowed on the season, and I believe that Joe keeps his hot streak alive as the Bengals jockey for playoff position, assuming his knee is okay, of course. Patrick Mahomes travels to Denver. He is my 3rd ranked player. Mahomes was outdueled by Joe Burrow last week, plain and simple, but was still able to conjure up a top 8 finish, his 4th straight as a QB1. In his last 3 games, he has 8 touchdowns, just 1 pick, and 927 passing yards to go along with 57 of them on the ground. His matchup here is not ideal as the Broncos rank top 7 in 3 major categories: points allowed to the position, passing yards allowed per game, and passing touchdowns surrendered. Doesn't matter, I say he overcomes it. In 4th position, it is Tom Brady staying at home to take on the Panthers. Spot on in my prediction that Brady would triple his scores from his last 2 weeks combined. Brady went off against the Jets, throwing for over 400 yards and 3 touchdowns. He finished as a top 3 quarterback on the week. Carolina has not been kind to quarterbacks and allowed the 5th fewest points per game to passers and the 2nd fewest yards per game on the season. But we know this: Brady rises to the occasion this time of year, and the Bucs are looking to keep pace in the NFC. Rounding out my top 5, it is Kyler Murray staying at home against the Seahawks. Murray was not perfect against the Cowboys, but he looked as good as he has since when he came back from injury, and it was against that elite Cowboys defense. The Cardinals bounced back just as I said they would. The Seahawks have allowed 5 passing touchdowns in their last 3 games. That is 8th most in the NFL, and with the 118 yards that Murray has on the ground in his last 2 games, that dual threat ability is going to come up big as the Cardinals continue to right the ship. My 6th ranked player is Justin Herbert, who travels to Vegas to take on the Raiders. Make it 7 straight QB1 finishes for Herbie, who did enough to allow the Chargers to cruise to a critical victory. In their last 3 games, Vegas has allowed just 2 passing scores and 427 yards through the air, and that takes Herbert out of the top 5 for me. He'll put up solid totals, but he isn't likely to reach a ceiling against the Raiders. Taysom Hill travels to Atlanta and he's in at 7. Hill was able to throw for the most yardage that he has since back in week 13, and he did his usual damage on the ground, finishing just outside of QB1 range in a difficult matchup against the Panthers. He's going to have a far easier time here as the Falcons allow the 3rd most points per game to signal callers. There's still a chance that the Saints make the playoffs, and Hill is going to do everything to ensure that that happens. Traveling to Philadelphia and in at 8, it is Dak Prescott. Over the past 2 weeks, few have put up the numbers that Prescott has. He's compiled 556 yards through the air, 41 on the ground, and produced 7 touchdowns with 2 finishes in the top 5. Philly is top 10 in both points per game and passing scores allowed to quarterbacks, so this will be quite a test. But with so much at stake, Prescott gets Dallas right and continues his hot streak. In at number 9, I have Matthew Stafford staying at home to take on the 49ers. In the first 2 quarters last week, Stafford was an absolute mess and did everything that he could to help the Rams lose that game. Thankfully for owners, he turned it around in a big way in the second half. He completed every pass he threw and finished with a respectable 309 yards and 2 scores to go along with his 2 picks. It was not the monster game that we were expecting, but it did not kill owners either. The 49ers have allowed just 537 yards passing and 3 touchdowns through the air in their last 3. Both of those numbers are top 10 in the NFL. Traveling to Arizona, and the last player in my top 10 is Russell Wilson. Arizona has given up 8 passing scores over the last 3 games. That is 2nd most in the league, and Russ is coming off a top 2 performance where he threw 4 touchdown passes and rushed for the most yardage that he has since back in week 10. There is going to be a ton of points scored in this game, and I want the dude who may play his last game in a Seahawks uniform hell-bent on going out with a bang. Trey Lance is my 11th ranked quarterback in week 18. He travels to LA to take on the Rams. It was a slow start for Trey last week, and it had me a little bit worried, but my faith in him paid off with a monster second half, and he finished as a top 10 option. If he starts against the Rams once again, and I think he will, I can understand the concern in going back to the well. The Rams allow the 4th fewest points per game to the passers and have conceded just 1 passing touchdown in their last 3 games. But with the weapons he has at his disposal and his rushing ability, the upside here is juicy, so I am rolling the dice on him one more time. The last QB1 I have for you guys is Justin Fields, who travels to Minnesota to take on the Vikings. My thought process for such an aggressive ranking of Fields is simple. He has top 10 finishes in 4 of his last 5 starts, 1 being against this very team. The Vikings are bottom 7 in points per game to the position, and both passing yardage and touchdowns allowed. This does not have to be hard, people. If he starts for Chicago, he should start for you this week. Unlucky number 13, as he's been for owners over the last couple, Jalen Hurts is here against Dallas. He has struggled mightily in the last 2 weeks and has just 1 finish inside the top 14 in his last 3. His rushing ability finally resurfaced last week, and that is a great sign and is going to be much needed against a Dallas defense that is ranked top 10 in passing touchdowns and points per game allowed to the position on the year. Hurts has the upside of a top 5 play, and we know that, and his floor makes him a solid QB2 option. Kirk Cousins stays at home against Chicago, and he is in at 14. Cousins is going to be back this week for the Vikings, and he has some upside as the Bears allow almost 2 touchdown passes per game. Also going for him, the game means absolutely nothing for Minnesota, and Captain Kirk loves to come up big under those circumstances. There is plenty of point potential in this one. Traveling to Jacksonville, and in at 15, it is Carson Wentz. It was clear last week that the virus affected Wentz on Sunday, as he was off target and inconsistent for almost the entire game against Vegas. Another week removed, he's going to fare much better against Jacksonville. The Jags have given up the 4th most passing scores over their last 3, with 6 of them, and they surrender almost 18 points a game to signal callers. To 16 we go, and at home against the Chargers, it is Derek Carr. LA has given up nearly 300 yards through the air and 2 passing scores per game over their last 3, bringing some upside to Carr's game, which has been lacking for the last month. In this great matchup with shootout potential and the playoffs on the line, I believe Carr steps up enough to pay off this ranking. Moving on to 17, it is Ryan Tannehill traveling to Houston. He has been Mr. Reliable, but the upside leaves owners wanting more. I am buying the floor. The Texans have allowed just 1 touchdown per game in their last 3, but they've given up over 750 yards through the air in that span. There isn't a safer option than Tannehill right now, but he is not going to surprise us with a big game either. Traveling to Baltimore, it is Big Ben Roethlisberger here at 18. The Ravens have allowed the most passing yards and touchdowns in their last 3, allowing over 1,000 yards and 9 scores respectively. Big Ben clearly needs all the help that he can get, looking like he actually retired 2 weeks ago and forgot to tell anybody else. He's finished outside the top 25 in back-to-back games, but he's thrown 81 passes over the past 2 weeks, and that volume in this matchup means hopefully good things. At 19, I have Mac Jones, who travels to Miami. Jones has combined a surprising ceiling with a brutal floor over the past month, so he comes with risk. But he has top 10 finishes in 2 out of his last 3 games. It is a complete unknown which Miami team shows up after their dumpster fire performance last week, but I am betting Belichick after the Patriots put up a 50-burger on Jacksonville. Tyler Huntley rounds out my top 20. He stays at home against Pittsburgh. I am not ranking Lamar Jackson until he practices on more than one leg, and Huntley has shown to be a solid floor play in 4 straight starts. He is not going to replicate his QB1 performance overall against Green Bay, but he's going to finish in the top 20, and the damage he does on the ground certainly helps. He is going to need it because Pittsburgh has allowed just over 170 passing yards per game in their last 3, and that is 7th best in the league. Jordan Love finds himself back in my rankings. He's here at 21 and he travels to Detroit. With nothing to play for in week 18, I believe Jordan Love gets his show in Green Bay this week. Detroit has surrendered 6 passing scores over their last 3. That is tied for 4th most in the NFL, so I think that there is hope that Love can show a lot more than he did in week 9 when he took on the Chiefs. I pulled a Santa and had to check my list twice to make sure Drew Lock was actually here. He is my 22nd ranked player at home against Kansas City. I'm as surprised as you are that Drew Lock is in my rankings, but he finished as the QB 15 last week, and the Chiefs not only allow the 4th most points to the position, but they've surrendered 7 touchdowns and 828 passing yards over their last 3. It could get away from the Broncos early, which means garbage time opportunities. To 23, it's Davis Mills. He stays at home against Tennessee. I was off Mills last week, and he proved me right by predictively falling back to earth after a nice stretch. Tennessee is not an easy matchup by any stretch, but options are dwindling, and the Titans allow over 240 passing yards per game. The last QB2 I have ranked in week 18 is Tua Tagovailoa, who stays at home against New England. I've been a Tua backer all year, and I'm willing to say that last week was just a bad day at the office for the young quarterback. But it's going to be very hard for him to bounce back in any meaningful way against New England. The Patriots allow the 2nd fewest points per game to passers on the season, and after how Miami looked last week, it is tough to feel comfortable with Tua as anything more than a desperation option. For my notable omissions, I have 4 for you guys this week. I'm going to start with Baker Mayfield at home against Cincinnati. Depending on how surgery goes, apparently there is a chance that Baker suits up. Even if he does, he wouldn't be anything more than a desperation play, and there are better ones out there. Taylor Heinicke is next, traveling to New York to take on the Giants, and over the last 3 weeks, Heinicke hasn't done anything to cement a chance at returning as a starter next year, finishing out the side the top 25 in each contest. The Giants have been surprisingly stingy to the position, and there's no way I'm giving him a chance to fall flat with a championship on the line. At home against New Orleans, the next guy I'm avoiding is Matt Ryan. The Saints allow under 16 points a game to quarterbacks, and Ryan has gotten inside the top 20 just once since week 9. I think it is a long day for the Falcons, and Ryan is not an option. Trevor Lawrence is the other. He stays at home against Indianapolis, and Lawrence was able to throw his first touchdown pass since back in week 12 against the Patriots, but his interception issue resurfaced as he threw 3 more to bring his yearly total to 17. Better luck next year, champ. With quarterbacks complete, let's look into week 18's kickers. A late addition to my rankings last week, Tucker rebounded with a top 3 performance and gets a top 5 matchup here against the Steelers. They allow over 8.5 points per game to the position. He's going to see plenty of opportunities again, no matter who starts at quarterback. Harrison Butker travels to Denver. He's in at 2, and rounding out my top 3 is Randy Bullock in a road matchup with Houston. The Texans allow over 8 points a game to kickers, and the Titans are looking to lock up that overall number 1 seed here in the AFC. They are going to score a ton of points, and Bullock is going to capitalize. To 4 we go, it's Michael Bagley. He travels to Jacksonville, and the last player in my top 5 is Tyler Bass at home against the Jets. Nick Folk travels to Miami. He is my 6th ranked player. And Folk drops a bit due to his lack of recent production, but he should still see tons of action against Miami. They allow the 6th most points per game to kickers. Plenty of potential here, especially if the Pats get up big, and I think that is a distinct possibility. To 7, it is Matt Gay. He stays at home against the 49ers, and my 8th ranked kicker is Matt Prater at home against Seattle. With a top 4 finish last week, Prater got back into the good graces of owners and should have another busy day against the Hawks as Arizona's offense continues its upward trend. Moving on to 9, Dustin Hopkins is on the road against Las Vegas, and my 10th ranked kicker is Greg Joseph, staying at home against Chicago. With Kirk Cousins back, Joseph is a solid bet to get back into the top 10 in a game where a ton of points are likely scored. He has top 10 finishes in 3 out of his last 5. At 11, I have Daniel Carlson at home against the LA Chargers, and the last kicker I have ranked is Greg Zuerlein on the road against Philadelphia, who hasn't kicked a field goal over the last 2 games, but I think that changes here against Philly. The Cowboys offense struggles to punch it in the end zone, and Greg the Leg gets to kick something beyond 20 yards. Just a couple notable omissions before we wrap it up. The first is Jake Elliott at home against Dallas. After losing their chances at a number 1 seed, I think Dallas's defense turns it around against the Eagles, and Elliott doesn't crack the top 12 for the first time in over a month. That being said, he's got an excellent floor, and if that's what you're after, go ahead and start him. The final kicker I am looking to avoid is Ryan Suckup at home against Carolina. After finishing as the 19th and 32nd ranked kicker in 2 out of the last 3 games, it is hard to put faith in Suckup when it's most necessary. And that'll wrap it up for me for quarterbacks and kickers in week 18. I appreciate you guys joining me for it. If you have any starter sit questions, drop those down below. I would love to be able to help you out. We know things change quickly in the fantasy landscape as the week progresses. If you are new to the channel, welcome. Please consider liking and subscribing. Your support means so very much. I appreciate it greatly. To all of my subscribers out there watching, thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate all of your guys' support, the engagement, all of it means a lot. This is Relentless Press. I'm your host, Abraham Opatz, and we'll see you next time.